They say land is the greatest wealth a man can leave his son. But my father? He knew a secret that most men learn too late. He knew that physical wealth can be taken in a single night, but there is one thing no thief can ever touch. In the heart of Umuaka, life was measured by the rhythm of the seasons and the strength of a man's grip on his hoe. My father, Mazi Chidi, was a man of the soil. He didn't just walk on the earth, he spoke to it.
This dry earth still holds life.
How can you tell?
Feel it, it crumbles but it lives. The soil never lies. Treat it with respect, it rewards you. Cheat it and you starve. Come, sit with me. I need to tell you something. It will change your life. But one afternoon, under the heat of the midday sun, he told me something that changed my life forever. He said, Chukwudi, look at those children. A farm can feed your belly for a season, but education is the only inheritance that cannot be stolen. But education is the only inheritance that cannot be stolen. Fire cannot burn what is in your mind. Rain cannot wash away what is in your heart. This is your true shield.
My mother Adana was the heartbeat of our home. She believed in my father's vision with every fiber of her being. And we weren't rich in gold, but we were wealthy in peace. We lived in a house built on truth and hard work.
That year, the harvest was golden. Our barns were full. It felt like the blessings would never end.
We were a family of light, and in a village like Umuaka, light always attracts those who live in the dark.
My uncle Okonkwo, he didn't have a farm of his own, at least not one he worked. He preferred to harvest what others had planted.
He watched our success not with pride, but with a plan. He was waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
It was the last season of peace I would ever know. The storm was coming, and it had no mercy.
My name is Chuku, and this is how I lost everything and how I used my father's words to take it all back.
Character isn't tested when things are going well, it's tested when the world falls apart. Are you building an inheritance that can be stolen, or one that lasts forever?
They say tragedy doesn't knock. We're counting the heartbeats of a father who can no longer speak.
It started with a cough, a small, dry sound that seemed too weak to topple a man as strong as my father.
My mother fought the illness with everything she had, herbs, prayers, and tears that she tried to hide from me.
I stayed in the doorway, holding onto the books he loved, waiting for him to wake up and tell me it was just a dream.
His last words weren't about the farm or the goats. He whispered, "Remember the inheritance, my son, the one they cannot take." The village grew quiet. When a great tree falls in the forest, the birds stop singing. My father was gone.
The stress and the same fever that took my father found her too. It was as if she couldn't imagine a world where his shadow didn't walk beside her. Within months, the house that used to ring with laughter was as silent as a tomb. I was 12 years old, and I was alone.
I sat by the ashes of our life. I had the land, I had the goats, but I had no one to tell me I was brave.
And that's when the scavengers started to circle. They didn't see a boy in mourning. They saw a boy with an unprotected fortune.
My uncle Okonkwo didn't wait for the dirt to settle on my mother's grave before he showed his face. He spoke of tradition and protection, but I could see the reflection of my father's barns in his eyes. "Do not be discouraged, my son.
But it is so hard.
You are stronger than you know." The protection began with him taking the keys.
then the tools, then the peace. Graves. A spark of my father's fire flickered in my chest. I was a child, looked at those two graves. A spark of my father's fire flickered in my chest. They thought I was just a victim. They forgot that my father didn't just leave me a farm. He left me a mind. I was a child, and the world I knew had fallen apart. But as I looked at those two fragments, fire flickered in my chest.
When you lose everything, you find out what you're truly made of. Do you break, or do you sharpen?
Join me for Chapter 3. The dream becomes to one. Follow the journey.
My uncle Okonkwo didn't come to wipe my tears. He came to measure the size of my father's barn while the funeral fire was still warm. This book holds our people's stories.
I will read them all.
Good, knowledge is your path.
Yes.
People of the village, hear me! The time has come to stand together. Follow me now!
He arrived with a noise that filled the village. To the neighbors, he was the grieving brother. To me, he was a predator in a silk robe. His eyes were never on my parents' graves. They were on the things they left behind. He wasn't mourning a brother. He was auditing an estate. Before the first week was over, he sat in my father's chair. He didn't ask.
Chukwudi, a child cannot manage a kingdom. I am here to hold the keys until you are a man.
But I saw the lie in his smile.
Listen, my child. The stories of our people are precious.
Yes, Elder. I will remember.
Good. Now, go and play. The protection started with the harvest. He claimed my father owed him debts that had no paperwork, only his word.
Being led away. My inheritance was bleeding out, and I was expected to say thank you.
Stay close to me. The goats are restless.
Yes, Father.
They're breaking loose. Help me. Get them to the pen. We're going. He brought his friends into our home. They ate my mother's stored grain and drank my father's palm wine like they were celebrating a victory, not a death. This stew is the best I've had. To the cook, and to good friends. He didn't just want the food. He wanted the records. He wanted to make sure there was no evidence of what truly belonged to me. He told me books were for dreamers and that a servant didn't need to read. He didn't know that my father's words were already locked in my memory. Listen, my boy. This book holds the secrets of our people.
What secrets, Uncle?
The stories of our ancestors. He was literally shrinking my world. Every night, the boundary of my father's land moved a little closer to the house. I felt like a stranger in my own home. My uncle didn't see a nephew. He saw a nuisance that came with a title deed.
He was already spending money he hadn't earned. He thought he had won because I was quiet. He mistook my silence for weakness.
But while he was counting my father's wealth, I was starting my own. I began to save, not just coins, but observations. Chukwudi, go fetch the water now!
Yes, Father.
And be quick about it! He turned me into a servant in the house where I was born.
I let him believe he had broke me. I let him believe he was the clever one. It was the only way to get close enough to see his mistakes.
Greed makes a man blind. It makes him think he's playing a game against a child.
My uncle thought he had taken my home. He didn't realize he had just given me a reason to fight.
Have you ever had someone take credit for your hard work? Don't miss chapter 4 words at the family meeting. Follow for the truth.
They say home is where you are safe. But for me, home became a prison where the walls had ears and the floor was made of thorns.
Living under my uncle's roof wasn't just about hard work. It was a battle to keep my soul from being crushed by the weight of his cruelty. It started with the cold. While my uncle slept on my father's feather mattress, I slept on the dust of the kitchen floor. My day didn't start with the sun. My uncle started with the cold, the mattress. I slept on the dust of the kitchen floor. I became the ghost of the house. I made the fire, but I was never allowed to feel its warmth. I cooked the food, but I only tasted the steam. His wife was his shadow. She made sure I knew that every grain of rice I ate was a charity I had to earn with the skin on my knuckles. In the house of a greedy man, there is never enough for everyone, because his hunger has no bottom. For everyone, because his hunger has no bottom. I learned to eat last, and I learned to eat fast.
They tried to break my body with labor. They thought if I was tired enough, I would forget who I was. They didn't realize that every heavy log was making me stronger for the day I would stand up.
Work. People see him as a stranger. The hardest part wasn't the work, it was the humiliation. Being treated as a stranger in the house where my mother used to sing me to sleep.
I fought back in secret. My uncle told me I owned nothing, but in the debt, I owned the alphabet. I practiced my father's lessons every single day.
He tried to erase my mind, just like he erased my inheritance. But you cannot erase what is written in the soul.
I began to realize my uncle was planning something much bigger than a few goats.
I heard them talking about the city, about the final sale. My uncle was selling things that didn't belong to him to pay for a life he didn't deserve.
They hit me to make me fear them. Instead, it only made me study them. I learned their habits. I learned when they slept, and I learned when they lied.
The only friend I had under that cruel roof was the one they had thrown away. We were both survivors, waiting for the moon to rise.
I read by the light of the moon. My father's words were my only food.
Education is the inheritance fire cannot burn.
I realized that my uncle wasn't a giant. He was just a man with a loud voice and a small heart. And men like that always make mistakes.
The pain was temporary. The plan was permanent. I was no longer just a boy living under his roof. I was a spy in the house of my enemy.
They thought they were the masters of the house. They didn't know that the boy they treated like dust was the one who was going to bring the roof down on their heads.
Cruelty can house a body, but it can never imprison a mind. I was broken on the outside.
When the world gets loud with cruelty, the only way to survive is to listen to the whispers of the past.
I asked the silence.
The work was starting to win. My body was tired, and for the first time, my mind was starting to feel heavy with doubt. I asked the silence, "Papa, was I wrong to stay?"
And then, like a warm breeze in the harmattan, his voice came back to me. Not as a ghost, but as a command. Education is the only inheritance they cannot steal.
I realized that the rocks weren't my punishment. They were my classroom. Serenity to read people.
My father didn't just want me to read books. He wanted me to read people, to read situations, to read the land.
I had saved one thing that my uncle didn't find. A small rust compass. They are weapons.
My father's old diary and a small rusted compass. Small tools, but in the right hands, they are weapons.
As I turned the pages, I saw it. Left dead to my uncle paid the deal he ever made.
The proof they were lies was right here in my hands.
My father had documented every boundary stone, every debt he ever paid.
My uncle was building his empire on a foundation of sand. He thought he was moving stones, but he was actually moving evidence, and I was the only witness.
I stopped working for him and started working for the truth. I began the book, he would burn it, but he couldn't burn my memory. I began to memorize the diary. If he found the book, he would burn it, but he couldn't burn my memory.
Useless boy, get up and walk!
He called me.
When he underestimated me, the more mistakes he would make in front of me.
I told the goat the stories of our ancestors. I wasn't just talking to an animal, I was reminding myself who I was.
A promise is like a drop of water in a still pond. It starts small, but the ripples eventually touch every shore. My father's promise was starting to move.
I promised my father I would finish my education. My uncle thought he had stopped my schooling. He didn't realize that the whole village had become my classroom.
I studied how men signed their names. I was learning the laws of the land, one observation at a time. The thief's luck was running out.
Greed is a fire that eventually runs out of wood. My uncle was starting to panic, and a panicking man is a loud man.
I haven't forgotten.
The land will breathe again, and the name of Chidi will be honored.
The morning of my mourning was over. The afternoon of my plan was beginning. I was ready to be the clever boy they all feared. My father gave me the inheritance. Now, it was time for me to go and collect it.
Who is the one person you never want to disappoint? Type their name or family in the comments. Don't miss to follow for the rise. My uncle thought he gave me a graveyard of rocks. This was the day I stopped waiting for someone to save me.
My father taught me that strength isn't just in the arms, it's in the leverage. I didn't have my father's muscles yet, but I had his mechanics.
Under the heat of the sun, the rocks acted like a lid, keeping the moisture trapped in the earth.
In the earth. My uncle took the easy land, but I had found the protected land.
I didn't plant yams, they take too long and are too easy to see. I planted peppers, small, fast-growing and valuable, the clever boy's first crop.
I became a gardener of the night. Every drop of water was an investment. I was growing my future in the cracks of my uncle's shadows. Within weeks, the worthless hill was blushing with red gold. My uncle looked at the rocks and saw nothing. I looked at the rocks and saw a market.
I had to be a thief to harvest my own work. If Okonkwo saw this, he would claim the hill was his again. Success is only yours if you can keep it a secret.
Grown in the hills, madam. The sun makes them sweet.
They look good. How much? Just for you, a fair price.
Fresh peppers from the hills, very hot.
How much? Only 50 naira. Give me 2 handfuls.
I didn't want a stall. A stall attracts taxes and uncles. I became a shadow in the market, selling to those who knew that the best peppers grow in the sun of the hills. My first coins. They were small, but they felt heavier than the rocks I had moved. They were proof that my father's wisdom worked. I didn't spend a kobo. I was building a war chest. Every coin was a soldier waiting for the day of the battle.
Look at this! My soil is dust! The heat that dried on the rain, I relied on rock. Pepper's hotter. His pride was starting to cost him.
We were both getting stronger. The weak goat was now the fastest in the compound. We were the only ones who knew that the clever boy was back.
The debts are too much.
What can we do?
I need a big score. I knew what he was looking at next. The debts are too much. I don't know what to do.
We must find a way, my husband. He needs a big score.
He wasn't satisfied with the farms. He wanted ancestral forest, the land that belonged to the whole line. He wanted to sell our history.
My uncle's greed was finally eating itself.
The debts are crushing us.
What can we do?
He needed a big score.
Step 1 was survival. Step 2 was observation. Step 3 was the trap. I began to leave clues for my uncle to find.
The best way to catch a greedy man is to give him a bigger bait. I let him think I had found something valuable in the rocks.
He thought he was the master of the house. He didn't know he was now a guest in my game.
Opportunity doesn't always come in a gold box. Sometimes it's hidden under the heaviest rocks in your life.
Have you ever turned a bad decision to a win? Drop a hand to your problem solver. Don't miss Plan Revealed. Follow for the masterclass.
A man's true face isn't seen in the light of the sun. It's revealed in the shadows when he thinks no one is watching. My uncle thought he was the architect of my ruin. He didn't know that the walls I was using to listen to his downfall.
Silence is a weapon. For months, I had been the quiet boy, the broken servant, but tonight I was the witness. The plan was simple and wicked. He wasn't just taking my father's forest, the landing that belonged to every family in Umuaka.
He was selling our history for a bag of paper. He was willing to make the whole village homeless to save himself.
The stranger wanted the title deeds. My mother had Nidi Elmo signed them no more. But there was one problem. My uncle needed one more forgery, and he needed the village elders to witness it.
In the game of shadows, one slip is all it takes to end the match. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird.
He didn't see me, not yet. I vanished into the darkness of the goat pen, becoming one with the shadows and the smell of the earth.
He cursed the animals and went back inside. He thought he was alone. He forgot that the earth remembers every footprint.
I didn't just listen. I documented. Names, dates, amounts. My father's diary had taught me that a man's word can be denied, but a record is a ghost that speaks the truth.
The trap was being set. He was going to feed the elders for the sale. A feast of betrayal.
I was the invisible servant. I saw the document. I saw where he hid the forged seal. He thought I was part of the furniture. He didn't know I was the judge.
It was time. I had the coins to pay a messenger. I had the diary to prove the lie.
And I had the courage my father had planted in me.
Give this coin and message to the retired clerk.
I will. But why him?
The elders will listen to him.
He was celebrating a victory he hadn't earned. He was drinking to the destruction of our heritage. Drink, everyone, the harvest is ours. A bountiful year, despite everything.
Drinked into destruction of our heritage. He had no idea the clever boy had already moved the pieces. The stage was set. The players were in place. Tonight, the servant was going to present the bill.
One signature. That's all he needed to end our history. But the truth has a way of showing up just before the ink dries.
My uncle offered them a feast to hide his theft, but a full stomach can't protect you from a sharp mind.
Have you ever caught someone in a huge lie?
The most dangerous lie is the one everyone wants to believe.
A lie can travel around the village 7 times before the truth even puts on its sandals. But when the truth finally arrives, it doesn't just walk, it roars. My uncle thought he was signing a contract. He didn't realize he was signing his own confession. The moment had come. The elders were ready to witness the sale of the century. To them, it was just a signature. To Teke, it was the end of our forest. The air in the room suddenly turned cold. A voice that hadn't been heard in years cut through the laughter. Wait, that paper is a curse, not a contract. It was Mr. Okafor, the retired clerk, the only man in the village who knew the records better than the people who wrote them. And behind him was me. I wasn't the broken boy anymore. I was my father's son, and I was carrying the evidence. My uncle tried to laugh it off. He called us interruptions. But Mr. Okafor didn't come to talk. He came to compare. I spoke the first time. Elders, look at the ink. Look at the marks. My father's hand was steady. This forged paper is the work of a man whose heart is shaking. The silence was deafening. You could hear the heartbeat of the village. The elders saw the difference between the legacy of a man and the theft of a brother. When a cornered animal has no exit, it bites. He called me a liar. He called the diary a child's play. But then I played my final card. I told them how I survived, how I farmed the worthless rocks they gave me. I told them that if a boy could make a living from stones, why did a grown man need to steal the forest? The stranger saw the fire. He didn't want to get burned. He left my uncle alone with his lies, taking his empty promises with him. Justice didn't need a court. It only needed a witness. The elder's voice boomed. Okonkwo, you have not only shamed your brother, you have shamed the earth itself. The man who tried to make me a servant was now a beggar in the eyes of his people. His greed had built him a throne of salt, and today it rained. They returned the keys. They returned the land. But more importantly, they returned my father's honor. The clever boy had saved the village. I whispered to the earth, "It is done. The harvest is ours again." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I'd been carrying since the day the cough started. I didn't leave the rocks. I turned them into a monument. They were the stones that sharpened my mind. My name is Chukwudi, and this is why I tell you, never fear the storm. The storm is just the earth's way of testing if your roots are deep enough to hold the truth. The greatest inheritance isn't what you can hold in your hand. It's what you hold in your head. Greed is a short race, but wisdom is a marathon. Which one are you running today? Did you enjoy the journey of the clever boy? Drop a balance scale. If you believe the truth always wins. Subscribe to Candid Chronicles Africa for more stories of raw wisdom. Share this with someone who needs to stay strong.